In class, we started talking about parallel vectors. So how do we determine if vectors are in fact parallel? Well, we said that they go in the same direction if they're parallel. So here's vector 1, here's vector 2, those are parallel vectors. They don't have to be the same length, they don't have to have the same starting point. So here are two parallel vectors. Here are two parallel vectors. Okay, so vectors u and v are parallel when vector v is just a scalar multiple of vector u. Meaning, take one vector, multiply it by a scalar, get the other vector as a result, then what you have are two parallel vectors. Okay, so this makes sense because vector v is a scalar multiple of u, meaning that it lies along a line with the same slope. If it's a scalar multiple, it falls onto the same line, and you probably remember from algebra that two things that fall on the same line are collinear, which certainly makes them parallel. What it might have is a different magnitude, though. It could, it doesn't have to have a different magnitude. If it doesn't have a different magnitude, then those two vectors are not just parallel, but in fact equivalent. Then the vectors are equivalent. All right? So the easiest way to determine if two vectors are parallel is to determine if one vector is a multiple of the other vector. It's a scalar multiple of the other vector. We can also determine if two vectors u and v are parallel using dot products and the angle theorem. Because if two vectors are parallel, the angle between them is either going to be 0 or 180. What's going to happen is that cosine of that angle either equals -1 or +1. So the dot products of two parallel vectors will either be -1 or +1. So again, two vectors are parallel, then their dot product is equal to the product of their lengths, or -1 times the product of their lengths. So sorry, I just misspoke. It's not equal to -1, it's equal to -1 times the product of their lengths. Okay, so this has to do with that formula we found originally. So if the dot product is equal to the product of their lengths, or if it's -1 times the product of their lengths, then the two vectors are parallel.